thank you for that recap, Mark. I think that was a good summary of the activities that we've been participating in. I just want to reiterate that we have been, since the last time we presented to this group, we have been meeting with Director Weinstein and the department managers within the staff to really develop the plans even further from what you had seen previously. So,
hey, Amy, can you make that full screen?
Just enlarge a bit.
The view button up top, maybe.
Is that better?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so just, sorry. Just to recap, north is up on these plans. This is the lower level first floor plan of the building. Front Street is along the top of the drawing. What you're seeing here is the existing north parking lot. We are making some minor revisions to allow for the new entry connection for the new entrance off of the north side of the building. We're also removing one of the parking islands in order to maximize the parking count on this side of the building. As you enter the new north entry at the center of the building, this is all very similar layout to what we showed previously, but we've just continued to develop the interior layout. So you enter the vestibule into the lobby. We have to the west is the Youth Services Department. To the east is Adult Services, and the elevator and new stair up to the second floor. Off of the lobby, we have a couple of public study rooms, as well as 2 new gender-neutral restrooms off of this lobby space. As you move to the west in the plan, you enter Youth Services with the service desk directly across from the new teen space, which is right here. As you move into the plan, we have a mix of soft seating, tables, computer tables, as well as a new play area for the younger children. And then the stack space as you move deeper into Youth Services Department. We're leaving the line between the public space and the staff space at the west end of the building. So behind this wall, we are doing some reconfiguration of the admin, IT, and staff break room spaces, but the general layout remains the same. Moving back into the lobby, as you move to the east, you move into the Adult Services Fiction large print collection on the first floor. We have the AV art collection along the back wall, and we've pushed the book stacks away from the window on the north side to really maximize opportunities for seating along those windows. We've also moved the library's art gallery from the far west side of the floor plan to a more central location here. Circ workroom with the new drive-up window remains here. And then there is another service point for adult services and a couple of existing study rooms which will remain. This is the existing stair up to the east end of the building where the large meeting room, where most of you are right now, will stay, as well as the existing public restrooms. The major change on this end of the building is that what was previously the entry vestibule now becomes a lounge space with views out to the new outdoor program area. I will jump up to the second floor and then we can circle back if there are any questions on plan. On the second floor, again, Front Street is at the top of the plan. Kingston is over on this side. You can see here for reference, this is the canopy over the new north entrance. And on the south side of the building, we are proposing a new entry canopy and vestibule on the south side. Because grade at the south side is lower than the second floor, you actually enter at a new intermediate level, which is about 4 feet below the second floor. So you'll enter the vestibule. There will be a landing with a short stair that goes up and a stair that goes down. And you can also enter the new elevator from this landing as well. So as you come up to the second floor, this is also adult services. This is the nonfiction collection, reference periodical collections, as well as the public computers. So we have another adult service point here, 2 study rooms, and then the adult services workroom moves to this corner. And we're maintaining the existing stair and elevator and adding 1 public gender neutral restroom on this level. Again, in conversations with the staff, this area is really preferred to be kind of a mix of soft seating and small tables for study or research work. As I zoom out just a little bit to touch on the site plan again, the south parking lot we are maintaining, except we're adding a new island entry piece here to correspond to the new building entry. We are locating 3 ADA parking spaces adjacent to this entrance. And I should have mentioned we will have 2 ADA parking spaces adjacent to the north entry as well. Any questions on plan before I turn it over to Eric to present a little bit on what we've started with the interior design?
Amy, one question maybe I'll preempt for the board is if you can explain maybe the north parking lot and how many spaces are there, how many in total are needed for the library by code versus what are there just in the north parking lot as it is designed, and then also
Sure.
What would happen if you did expand?
Sure. So the north parking lot currently has 23 parking spaces. We're proposing 25 spaces, and that's partially because we are removing one of the existing islands that is about here. And then we're reconfiguring a bit of the parking here with the new entry component. By code, the library is required to have 33 parking spaces. In total, the library actually has right now 130. So the library well exceeds the number of parking spaces that are required by code. We did look at adding some additional parking at this corner of the site. It was determined a large boulder right here, which would impact some of those parking spaces, which is partially buried below grade. And in order to put parking spaces in this corner, we would need to put in a fairly extensive retaining wall. So after reviewing that with the rest of the design team, Director Weinstein and Mark, reviewing the costs, that is not something that we are currently recommending that the library proceed with. Did that answer your questions, Mark?
Yeah, perfectly. And I think there'll probably some questions there.
So since you're on the north parking lot, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. On the north parking lot, so removing one of those, the land part that you said, I can't remember how you described it, but to make more parking spaces. Mm-hmm. So further down to the east, it looks like a tree, but that's where the current book drop is.
Correct.
So now I'm curious about the book drop because this parking lot is going to be 2-way. And I know when I pull in to drop things in the book drop, I'm coming from the west entrance, right, the west side of the library, the entrance there, go through the north parking lot, and I drop it from my driver's side, and then I exit out. And if this is 2-way, that's going to cause a problem, I can imagine, with people pulling in the east entrance and then turning right into the lot. And then that could cause a problem with people trying to drop up the book drop. So I don't know if we want to keep it 2-way, if we need to move the book drop location, but that's a hassle, an issue, I guess, not hassle, issue.
I think I'm not sure if this is an old label, but I think if we weren't adding to the north, it would be 2-way. If we aren't adding, it would remain 1-way.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Because the book drop is remaining where it's at.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it could remain 1-way.
Okay.
Simple solution.
So it's just then people that if they pulled in, let's say they pulled in the south lot off of Kingston, and then they circled around, they would need to, if they wanted to park in the north lot, they just have to go out onto front and then come back in. Okay. Okay.
Does that seem to make sense?
Yeah.
I think it does, honestly.
So this would not be 2-way. It would be 1-way in the north parking lot like it is currently.
I think that like I said, the labeling is there from when originally we were thinking about expanding, and then the book drop would probably have to move.
Okay.
And that was kind of all in the,
So all of those are one way now?
Yeah.
The only part that would be two-way parking lot wise is in the east parking lot, like it is now?
Yes, that is, yes, thank you. That is a good catch.
Okay, thank you.
Any other plan or site related questions?
Just a few quick ones, just so that I can confirm if I understand correctly, Amy, on
Sure.
this. The outdoor program area, just from a black solid line standpoint, what I think are doors swinging open from the southern point of it, can you describe what that really is? Like, what's the barrier there?
Yeah, and let me,
We'll be showing that in the next section too.
let me show it to you in plan, and I can talk through it a little bit. And then we have a 3D perspective rendering that Eric will show that'll, I think, additionally help clarify it.
Okay.
So the intention with the program area on this side, right now you have the existing entrance canopy, which is, it's a couple of steel columns, and then you have the curved glass that goes over the top. Our intention is to keep the structure, so the steel portion of it, remove the glass over the top, and then clad it with wood to make it more of a kind of a wood trellis look. We do need to maintain some egress routes through the outdoor program area. That's why we still have, the door out of the large meeting room. This is a code required exit. So you see the door here, and then the ability to egress through the outdoor space and then out to a sidewalk. Similarly, we need to maintain an egress path from this end of the building. So there is a door here and then a pair of gates where you can continue out if you need to egress. The intention is to put in new hardscape in this zone right here, which more or less corresponds, and I'm sorry, when I say hardscape, I mean concrete paving. To maintain roughly the same amount of paving area that's out there now at the existing east entrance, but to redo it. Partially we're doing that because we all really like the tree and landscaping that you have at that north end. So we'd like to keep that. You're seeing kind of the indication of the tree here and some green space, and limit the paving area really to the middle and lower portion of that program area. Does that help to clarify it?
Absolutely. May I ask another?
Of course.
On the upper floor?
Mm-hmm.
This one should be really fast. The northwest corner, what is that? So I see study room. What is, the abbreviation is kind of hard for me to interpret.
Oh, so we have two small study rooms. One is dedicated to the ELD program, which is English learning and English language development. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And then it was just a curiosity question. I have no preconceived guess as to why. I was just curious. The choice of nonfiction upstairs and fiction downstairs. Obviously, all the adult collection had to be split. So, what was the rationale?
That is a very good question. It really comes down to the size of the collection. The nonfiction collection is larger than the fiction collection, so it fits better on this floor.
I can pipe in a little too. And the Department Director of Adult Services was integrally involved in this. So we felt that nonfiction, the computers, the periodicals, all being in one space made the most sense. So we tried to find that space, and upstairs and where youth services is now currently really fit that space. Also, the fiction area where it currently is, if you can click back to the new configuration, Amy, moving it north allowed for a little bit more elbow room because we needed that for fiction, and then moving AV down to the south side allowed us to consolidate some, because some of that format is going bye-bye, and so we can consolidate the actual the numbers as well as the way we display some of the items.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what Tatiana said, because we're locating the stair and the elevator in this corner here, This right now, this is where you have the fiction collection. So we were reducing that available space. And by putting fiction on this side, it really allows us to get in some of this soft seating for kind of informal, reading lounge space along the windows. Anybody else?
Another question. So Jenny made me think about it when she was asked about the outdoor program space. Because currently in that area, that's where there's the bike racks. And so have you talked at all about where the bike racks would go in the new setup of the parking lot?
We have not yet located the bike racks, but we know that that is something that's important given, the traffic that you guys have coming to the library. So that's something that we would start to locate along with some of the other site features in design development.
Okay, I was just curious because of, you would need like concrete for that area probably, so.
The assumption on the cost side is that they would be placed at the one, if not both, of the entrances.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
The outdoor program area, will it be usable if it's raining or if it's snowing? Or because you've got the slats over the top, does that mean we can't use it if it's raining or snowing?
It is not currently intended to provide shelter during rainy or snowy weather. Correct.
And I think a couple of things hinder use in that, in A, temperature and snow. If it's going to be cold out there, it's going to cost a lot to put in heat and things of that nature. For rain, you really have to take a real careful look at how it's designed, because even if you put, say, a solid roof on it, you still have wind-driven rain that people are going to get wet just from the mist coming around. So at that point, you're looking at a little bit more of the walls or a reduced area of the covered area being even usable. So at that point where it's just somewhat ancillary, I think that the expense to do that is probably a little bit prohibitive. Because there was a defined need that like we need to be out there during rain events.
Well, the library has tents. So we do have some temporary tents that we put up in our parking lots for, when it's really hot and like sunshade. And if we had an event that was outside and there was a light drizzle or something like that, we can always put one out there. It would fit out on that hardscape area. If it was like a small group and it began to drizzle, we could do that.
So I guess my question is back to you, Tatiana. Are you okay with it the way it is?
I would prefer to have a wood structure out there that's a little bit more warm than what we've got going on there with the canopy. I don't think many people utilize the canopy for weather-related things. And I think having a more kind of a program space, reading area space that's more aesthetically pleasing, having maybe some vines, flowering vines growing on it, and making a more pleasant reading space for when the weather is nice, makes better use of it. So yes.
Great.
Can I piggyback on that? So now, Tatiana, you mentioned like outdoor reading space and things like that. So would that be accessible to the public when it's not being used for a program?
I think that's what those gates allow for.
Okay. Thank you.
So someone could drive into the east parking lot, park their car, bring their laptop out, sit outside.
Thank you.
Question for you. Are you okay too with them bringing the lunch somewhere, sitting out somewhere, and doing work or just taking a breather?
Of course, yeah. Very good. And we are providing an indoor, right now we provide a small cafe tables in the foyer right now, the in and out. And we're still providing that in the building. So if the kid needs a snack after school or, anyone wants to sit down and have a quick snack by the vending machine, that's still being offered.
It's interesting, but before COVID, there were a lot of people out there with their laptops.
Yes.
I mean, so that area is used.
We opened up our atrium 100% this last week, and we're getting a lot of use of it. So people are coming back.
If that's it for plan questions, I'm going to continue on so that Eric can start to share some of the interior design development that we've done. We can always come back at the end of the presentation to address any additional plan questions.
Amy, you're going to have to do the pointing.
Fair enough.
Might be a little more complicated than. So I'm going to try to explain one of those strange architectural diagrams that doesn't mean a lot to the layperson, but it's crucial to the architects as we develop things. We're calling this kind of our design diagram. And as we were developing the plans, you can kind of see the shape of it is similar to the floor plans, but there's a couple of boxes that are pulled out, and those are separate floor areas. So the second floor is shown above kind of where it's going to set, the floor it sets above, and then the meeting room is shown off to the end. So the side where the writing is the south entrance side, just for your orientation. And as we were developing the plan with the staff, you start kind of working in architectural ideas for the interior. You start coming up with ideas of how you can organize this, what you can do to develop, the space, both physically, but also the aesthetics of it and so forth. And what we kind of identified in this project is we have some given conditions, like we have these two separate entrances on opposite sides of the building, and we have that kind of transition between floors that occurs down at the meeting room. And as we were developing it, it kind of occurred to us that there's kind of a series of thresholds that you're going to go through as you go through the building. And this might be a way of us kind of organizing the architecture so that we could develop these thresholds as kind of like portals between spaces where they might have things in common between them, so that if we use the wood on the canopies, we may use wood at these conditions on the inside, but they'd also have opportunities to develop kind of specific things to them to kind of point out a difference between the children's area and the adult area and so forth, in a way of kind of subtly self-guiding and orienting you as you go through the building. We have a couple renderings of what this will look like. And these are schematic renderings. They're not final renderings by any means, but this is kind of expressing how we're thinking about this. This is an image as you walk in the north entrance, the new main entrance of the library. On the right, to your immediate right, there's a service point. And that's in kind of very different than the space you have now, where to get to a desk that's staffed, you've got to go a long ways to kind of get through that. We actually have a fairly good sized lobby here. And then you look beyond, and on the right, you can see kind of the threshold that is got the children's name over it. And we're showing, our first thought was maybe look at incorporating wood paneling similar to the entrance canopy, but then you're doing something different with the soffit and ceiling and the lighting in that area to kind of draw attention to it and identify it as the children's department. And then on to the left is the adult services area. And there we're showing a development of a ceiling color too, as well as the wood framing that kind of leads you in that direction. And we're looking at a way of kind of tying that in to the second floor, to the addition from the south side as well, which you can see through that opening. This is a good illustration of how close the entrances actually are to each other. There's a stair that lands beyond there, and then the elevator is immediately next to it. And that's visible from the service desk. So there's a very close connection between those two. But by doing things like this, we kind of help tie the whole building together, even though it is broken up into departments a little bit by necessity. In the children's area, we wanted a space, working with the staff, we wanted a space that could have doors on it and could be closed off so that you didn't have to worry about kids wandering out or anything, and you could control noise. And then to the left, that adult wall, that darker wall that says adult on it, that's a bearing wall. We can't take that out of the building. So we're using this ceiling as a way of kind of guiding you back into the rest of the open space in the building. And then as you look straight ahead, we're looking at different ways of including some popular collection or new books or something like that, featured items within the lobby. So it's always good in a library that you get some of that content from the library up front, so that it just feels at home there. You don't want to go too far without seeing the library materials. And to each side of that library is our group study rooms. Not huge ones, but small ones, and then a pathway back to the two new single-user bathrooms on that floor. If you want to jump up to the next floor.
Can I just make a quick mention?
Sure.
That the colors that are represented here, the actual, the shapes that are represented here aren't in stone by any means. We will be making those decisions in the next design phase. So this is just to kind of separate what Eric was mentioning about thresholds in and out of different spaces. That's why they're in different colors like this.
Yes, yes, and you know, it may not even reflect the exact materiality either. It's kind of an idea of how to put it together, and we have to develop this out further, kind of as we go through the design development phase. So this next view is the view you get when you enter from the south entryway. And you come out of the vestibule and you're in that kind of in-between landing that Amy mentioned is like 4 feet below the second floor. And then you go downstairs to the first floor. And again, we're kind of developing this as a kind of a threshold moment. You can see we brought on the left, we brought some of the wood expression in from the canopy, and it follows into the stair and the elevator, and kind of defines those areas. But also we're using a colored ceiling of a special ceiling of some sort above this area to kind of draw your eye back into the library in the second floor space and into the stair. So it kind of puts a certain amount of movement in it. We can do that. We've mentioned on here some continuous light coves. This is one of the great things with LED lights. You can put up these little lights that give the ceiling a glow. So at night, especially, it's very inviting and draws your eye in. Also on the side of the stair in blue, we realize as we develop this is a great opportunity for some kind of emblematic graphic or identity element for the library. Right now, we've got a placeholder shown there. It's the library's graphic, but it could be a lot of different things. And that's something, again, we'll be sorting out in the next phases of design. As you look at the stairway to the right, we're showing some railings there. We've actually talked with Tatiana and her group already, and our idea is we want it to be open. And as we looked at it, we think it's going to be more of a glass railing so that you can see into the floor area even better than what is shown there. And then as you develop this, you start, this is one of the beauties of the three-dimensional modeling we put buildings together, and now you can see these things early in the process. When you look kind of into that purple space, that's meant to represent the downstairs area. Well, right above it is a great opportunity for a graphic element that is the signage for the entryway. You can very clearly define to people what's on the top floor, what's on the lower floor, and which way they should go. So it's kind of a self-guiding library. They don't have to ask where to go. They can know kind of right off the bat when they get into this space. And then, pulling this through, and these are things that we're going to develop further. There's ideas of what they are on here, wood ceiling system and things. Frankly, a lot of these wood ceiling systems anymore are metal ceilings that have just the thinnest layer of wood on them and things. It's a more sustainable way of developing a wood paneled expression and things. So those are things we're going to be exploring further in the next phase of the project. Maybe we want to jump to the last image. This last image is kind of a bird's eye view of that outdoor program area. You kind of see the wood trellis that is on the left side of that enclosure there. That is, I don't know if you can point out, Amy, but we've left the structure in place that's holding up the kind of plasticized vaulted dome type object over top of the entrance area, and we're using it to hold up the wood trellis. So we don't have to put together a new structure or anything for that. We can envelop that steel with wood kind of and warm it up, make it a more pleasant kind of a human-friendly kind of expression. And then we're also proposing a wood fence that wraps around this area. And it would be high enough that it would detract from seeing the cars go by, but low enough that you're looking into all the overhanging trees that happen to the east of this. So it really becomes a nice outdoor environment that, even though it's immediately adjacent a driveway area, it's separated from it, and people can feel like it's a real pedestrian-friendly environment. And Amy pointed out earlier, we really love that tree and that expression of it down at that end. It's a gorgeous element, and there's some grade challenges down there, but that's part of, in developing new paving out here, we want to make sure that's all level within that area, and that we create a little site wall there so that we can keep that tree healthy without relocating it. And then in the upper left, which labeled trellis detail, that's just the start of some ideas of how we might put this trellis together in an interesting way that we could enclose some lights within it where you wouldn't really notice it so much, but also develop some vertical members, which you can see in the bottom of the trellis there, that kind of expand from the trellis down to the fence. And that would kind of give you a sense of enclosure without cutting down air movement and all that. Also provides more shade for that area. And it's kind of everything is situated in such a way so that we should get a lot of shade from this trellis. And then you also have the area next to it, to the right of it, that would get more open sun. So you have multiple ways of using this space depending on the weather conditions. So that's all the renderings we have for you. Any questions?
On that one that you're on right now, Eric, with the outdoor program space, I see the gate to the sidewalk on the south end of it. On the lower floor concept that we saw earlier, it looked like there's going to be another opening to it too. Is that in line with that other thing that's like to the left of the tree there? Is that sidewalk?
Yes, we still have to work that out, but we're waiting for the survey, because there's some grade issues in that area that we have to resolve so that you can get out of there cleanly without a bunch of steps. So
do you think that, like, would your ideal plan be that it would just be you just would be able to do a straight line out of the door from the meeting rooms, just straight out?
Our ideal plan is we wouldn't have to have it. We're trying to find a code way around it. Okay. But I think because of the number of people going through there, we may have to have that other door. So we're waiting to the later phase to kind of see if we can avoid it as we sort out the interior plan and get a more accurate count on what the code considers the occupancy of each room.
Okay.
So, and that would be a door. If we do have a door there in that gate, it would be an emergency exit only type door typically.
Right.
And all of them would be that way from the interior, unless the library unlocked them to allow people to come in from directly from the outside.
Okay. And we're not saying that the slats go horizontally or vertically yet.
I wasn't hearing any of that. Thank you.
Any questions? Any more questions?
Thought?
Yeah, comments.
Comments, questions. Yeah.
It is fair to say I like this and I don't like that too, because that helps the design team. I'm sure Eric and Amy will tell you that. It helps to know what you might not like just as much as what you do like. So
Beautiful. I think it's going in the right direction. I mean, you guys are working with the departments, and they know exactly how they need their departments to flow and what's going to work best for them. You know,
to that point, I'll call an example where you see the teen space today.
Can you bring up the first floor, please, again?
Yes.
That was the teen space on this plan, and this is what we're asking you forward with. Originally, and Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was more the play area.
Yes.
And the teen space was more play area it is. And that change happened actually after talking with Tatiana as well as Will, the youth services director, and and collaborating with Amy and Magda, architect, sort of working out that space and figure, we want teen to have this type of angle, this type of light coming in, and the play area we kind of want that to be segregated so people are running around all over the place with it. So I think some of those moves, and everyone got really excited about that type of move because it allowed for some different architectural developments on it. So things like that have really taken shape.
Exactly. And then also, if you remember or don't remember, the room that's labeled RFID, that was in a different location in the first iteration. That was closer to the center of the lobby, and we moved it to the north side so that can incorporate a return box there. So when we have the RFID sorter, you can return from indoor and outdoor, and the sorter will take it in. So if we're closed after hours, you can pop it in the outdoor box and it will sort and get sorted into its bin. So that moved as well. I think the most of the changes happened on this level with teen space, the play area, RFID room. Adult services moved a little bit, and then we also are at our last, I'm calling them little summits with the architect group and our department directors. We talked a lot about the workrooms, the office spaces, and so in the next line of designs, you'll see more detail in the workspaces. But all the departments are super excited. They're really happy with this general layout, and they understand that the finishes, the material types, that's coming. They're really happy.
Yeah, I would add from our end, the staff has been really great to work with. They've been very forthcoming with information, but also willing to listen to other ideas and things too. It's a great group.
Thank you.
Been a lot of fun.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In the library visits that Liz and I made, it seemed to me, Liz, back me up on this, the circulation workrooms and the RFID were together. I'm wondering, I see the difference here, the space between. It seemed to me that when you say circulation workroom, that's folks coming in and out, or not.
No, it
Okay.
doesn't have to be. The circulation workroom it will incorporate the office desks. It'll have the interlibrary loan department. It'll also have the new drive-up window. The RFID room is simply a room that will gather return materials, and it's also located right next to the main circulation desk. So they'll be staffed there, and there'll be room for a staff person in the RFID room as well. So you've got CERC staff together in one area as well as in the CERC workroom.
Okay, thank you.
Do you envision them, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
do you envision those folks being cross-trained so that, they
Yes,
can,
all the circulation staff will be able to work. I mean, everybody's got their unique kind of job descriptions, but when you're working the CERC desk, you're kind of taking care of all things circulation.
Okay.
They do.
And I would say this is not uncommon in a lot of the libraries that we work on, just because CERC, has a variety of services that they provide between drive-up function, office function, public-facing functions at the CERC desks, and then addressing returns. It's not uncommon for us to see them divided this way.
Yeah, and I do know that the circulation director was very pleased with this layout.
So it's important. Any other comments, questions?
Sure, I'll add that I do like the way that the design has evolved. This kind of like a stepwise refinement, taking the feedback and helping to incorporate changes that we seem to feel are improvements along the way. I think Emily's comment about the parking flow is something that I think, for me personally, I'm still a little bit concerned about, but I understand we're going to continue to evaluate that and do the best we can. I think the thing I'd like people to avoid, before my concern was, will people have to walk far? I think that's been generally satisfied with the entrance that we added here. But as far as if someone attempts to come in from one entrance, if there's no parking spaces in that particular zone, then all the one-way could have them really doing some loopy-loops, the way I kind of see it. You know, so if they came in from the south, then they come down past the drive-up window, and then they kind of have to exit and then come back in to get into the one-way feature. And also, if they're coming into the north, they're pretty much dead-ended there, and then they have to take a real hairpin all the way back down to try to get south. So I don't know what could be done there, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and I too had those thoughts, especially since expanding the north lot isn't probably financially feasible. What I encounter on an almost every other day basis, and it is right now currently when I leave the building at 5 o'clock, there's somebody who's parking in the employee lot looking for the door. And we have to always tell them you have to loop around. And so with the 2-door option now, I'm crossing fingers that there will at least be one spot available for that person who isn't familiar with our building. But our regular users will learn or understand that, you know, I want to go to the services department, so I'm going to park on the north side, and I want to go to periodicals, so I'm going to park on the south side. So our regular users get used to what doors they want to enter. But the smaller population that haven't visited us before, I'm hoping that there will at least be one spot for them. Right now there isn't, so there's a lot more of that looping happening on a weekly basis. So hopefully we don't get too much of that with the 2-door system.
Well, we can always come back if there are more questions. I'll jump into it. If you guys would like for me to present on the screen, I can, but I'm just going to go through the board packet. So do you want me to make me presenter?
I can't. Amy, can you let go of your
Yes.
presentation power?
I was
Should I
telling
make-
you there's a little trick to this. You got to
So
find
Mark,
this little pop-up book. Pop-up, Mark.
I'll make you the presenter, Mark.
There we go.
Okay.
There it is. All right. So I'll make this bigger. Oh, okay.
Okay.
I lost it on my end, so let's see. Sorry. So the design side is always the fun side, more than numbers and dates and things like that. But I'll go through this. Obviously, I won't dwell too much on schedule. It seems to be blurred out for some reason on the screen, but hopefully it's okay in your packets. Essentially, where we're at today is where I boxed in red. So that's where we are on schedule. In the bottom of that red box, you can see it actually now highlights on permitting. I've added some steps into permitting that we didn't have before. Anything with an asterisk on the left-hand side of the columns, that is a new line item since our concept phase. So you can see we've extended our zoning and permit this process discussion with the village. Coming out of today's board meeting, as long as the board is comfortable with us moving into the next phase of design development with the plans that you've seen in terms of the site plan, entrances, and the general layout, we will submit to the Village of Lisle for a special use application. And that would happen, like I said, ideally, end of this week. If not, then by for sure early next week.
Can you talk a little bit about what goes into that when you
Sure.
specify it to the village?
So the special use application includes a site plan, which is why we focused on that north parking lot next to that question. It includes a plat of survey, which you've had surveyors on site for about a week and a half to 2 weeks now, going around taking all the different measurements out on site. It includes a traffic study, which what the village asked for, and that is how is the drive-through going to be used? So we are addressing how it's going to be used, right? There's no need, the library function is not going to change in terms of, especially if we're keeping it one way, there's no change. What is different potentially is the drive-through window. It's a certain another service point. So Dr. Weinstein has gone and drafted up a letter and saying, really, we're looking at it the same way you do curbside pickup. And then it's a scheduled drop-off point, or sorry, scheduled pickup point.
Yep.
Drop-offs will still remain through the book drops that you have, the book returns, the 2 of them. So that way it really isn't a change. And if, they're looking at a traffic study for queuing, well, there's really no queuing, if it's scheduled. And beyond that, you'd have to wrap around the entire building to get back to a public right of way, which wouldn't happen.
Yeah, we have control over the quote unquote queuing, so.
So they needed that. Preliminary engineering, which is stormwater management. Now, stormwater And Eric, you might want to jump into this a little bit, but there are a few things that we're looking at doing for stormwater. One being the restrictor here that's on the south parking lot. They're going to be replacing that. That's part of the Frederick Quinn's facility condition assessment. The other part was all the way in the southeast corner. You have a little bit of mulch running off onto your parking lot. We did come up with an option that, okay, do we want to add piping in there or do something there? But the civil engineer looked at it and said, instead of trying to spend money and put in pipes and everything else that aren't guaranteed to solve the problem, let's look at a landscaping solution. Instead of having mulch, let's do some sort of low ground coverage that kind of get in there, which the whole design team and I think staff like that idea of doing.
So we already have a French drain in that space or in that area that we, in the.
Well, you do have some drain tile going on.
That's what I meant. Yeah,
So
so
he was talking about the southeast.
I know, I'm just saying that back lot, we get either icing or mulch waterfalls. And so part of the solution to that back area was I'm calling it a French drain, drain tiles. And then the design team was looking at, landscaping that can suck up some of the water and keep the mulch from waterfalling.
So the landscaping plan is what we're recommending to go forward with for the special use application in lieu of digging up more of that parking lot and sidewalk to put in drains underneath that really aren't necessary, we don't believe. And if it becomes necessary, that's something that can be done. Before spending a bunch of money, it's better to try planning a little bit less. So you have the site plans, the plat, traffic study, landscaping plans, which for that we don't have specific, this plant is going to go here yet. We're not at that point. So we're going to hatch out some areas. Predominantly, we're going to leave your landscaping where it is. We're just going to be looking at some new areas where we're touching the exterior facade. So that will be included. And that all gets packaged for submittal to the village. The first step then, jumping ahead a little bit my agenda, but it's okay. The first step is to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission. They'll hear it and make a recommendation to the board. Then the board gets the authority to say yes or no to it. You have a special use already in place. It's the only difference is that we're making a change to some of the sightline curbs and putting in the new entrances. So we're hopeful that we can handle this in a fairly efficient process.
Hopefully one meeting.
Hopefully one meeting for each. Yep. So we do have a little bit of, I'll call it, you can see actually in what is termed month 5, there's that white gap there. So we do have some flexibility in when things land in terms of actual meeting dates, but at the same time, we want to be careful that it's a risk that we manage and get out in front of. So I think now is the time to go in with that middle end.
So will you go to the planning and zoning and present it?
I would be at the team. So typically I would be there. You'd want Director Weinstein to be there, and as well as design professionals. We take a look at the package and whether that is just Shane Hartree or just their civil engineer, that's who would be there.
Okay, because they meet at the exact same day, the exact same time this week.
Yes. So next month happens to be a month where you moved the meeting. So hopefully that works out.
Cool.
We're hoping. That's now, if not, we'll try to see if there's a way to work with the Planning and Zoning Commission to figure out a solution.
And we may ask President Barthelli.
Yes.
And
Great.
I think if you would let us know, maybe some of us who are interested would also want to be in the audience.
Sure.
Definitely.
Do you think you're going to have any difficulties with planning and zoning?
We don't know. We have had conversations with village staff, and they've been receptive of the different ideas. They just want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So there really hasn't been pushback on the plans. It's just been, we need to go through the process. And it really was just the way the approval was written in 1993 that's causing this, the way it was written.
Can we get that stipulation not included?
We'd ask for that. We would like to ask that stipulation so that if you wanted to go and change a curb line 15 years from now, you're not going through the same process. Now, who knows?
At least we could try and make it so the administration at the village could approve it without going through a public hearing process.
Oh,
any experience in working with planning and zoning, I would encourage you to expect very detailed questions. Not that they're going to deny you, but they're very detail oriented. So, very cool.
Right.
We're working on this package to send with as much detail as we can ahead of time so that we presented everything, a comprehensive packet. So there's hopefully little question.
And the chair of planning and zoning is very open to having, they ask me ahead of time. This is what we're planning to do. Are we missing anything? And I think Mary Lynn, they don't, very open to giving feedback.
That's great, because I know we've talked to staff and really asked that question of what exactly is needed for this specific request. And we've gotten that listing, so we'll submit it. They have to do their own little internal review, And then I think as part of that, we'll ask them same question.
We're very much going into detail, but at the end of the day,
So that's really the main gist of the permitting and what changed there, but it's no overall change to the project schedule. Added a little bit more detail there. The other detail I added, I'm going to jump up a little bit, is the project funding line items. We did get a schedule from PMA of how they want to proceed with the different funding activities. Our target is closing on the bond sale, in other words, having money in the library's bank accounts in November. And the reason why we're trying to target for that is that when you go out to bid, you know the money is there. And you're not worried that, okay, the bid's coming in, the money's coming in, because it's all played out. So they've worked backwards. We believe we'll be coming to the library board in September with a debt issuance ordinance. What that is they draft up an ordinance that the library would have to approve to then go and sell debt. That's why we have the bond disclosure council coming on board now to prep all that information for September. So that's a brief heads up on that before your September meeting. Contractor procurement I did put on here. We're still about a month away, but we'll start talking about pre-qualification next month. So that's just something also to put on your radar. I did put the full schedule at the back of the packet as an exhibit if you wanted to reference, but I'll try to keep it onto an 8.5 by 11. I tried to zoom in on what's pertinent right now. The other more important, but just as important, if not more important for right now, is the next page, the project cost summary. So I'm going to go to that. The concept phase budget is the first column on the left. Essentially, that's remained unchanged. That is unchanged. That's what you approved. The next one to the right is the anticipated cost update. That's basically factoring in the schematic phase developments. So that's where you'll see the one major change would be the environmental remediation now has a dollar associated with it. We did get a preliminary budget number from the environmental consultant that is a little bit less action than that 25K, but so we think we're safe with that amount. And that really the one spot to take away and balance that out would be the building construction. So when we took a look at the building construction, we said, okay, what are things that we need to have? What are things that maybe we can hold as an alternate through the next step of design to try to align the scope of work with the assumptions that are in the drawings and what you're seeing today. And that's really what results in this construction cost summary. So, what we'd like to do is identify as an alternate instead of included in the base scope are these points 1 through 3. So included in the base scope would be replacing all the windows that were required or called out for replacement in the facility condition assessment. That means essentially the upper windows here on the second story in the youth department, those are all being replaced. The lower level windows, there's about 3 of them, I want to say, 3 or 4, don't quote me on that specifically, but on the lower level, just below that are not in need of replacement, but they're kind of right in line. You don't need to do it, but it's something that we'd like to at least get a little bit more cost information on as the project develops to see does it make sense to do them all at the same time. That's really what number 1 is about. Number 2 is about this operable partition in the middle of the meeting room. That was a larger dollar value that in best case scenario, we would like to replace it. But if that means losing something else functionally, doing as much detail on the exterior canopy outside, I think it's talking to library staff, that's probably lower on the priority list because it works, it's there. Why replace it if you don't need to? So that's another item that we're pulling out. Another one is the meeting room restrooms. So those are the ones right behind us tonight. The plan, when we first looked at the cost, we said, okay, how do we align this to make sure we're within budget? And that's one of the bigger ticket items that you don't really have issues with that restaurant right now. I believe you'd spent some money recently on doing the counters. Was it?
And sinks.
And sinks and things like that. So, you could do a wholesale replacement, which is what that number down there, 165 is. It's partitions, it's fixtures, it's sinks. But I think we pull that out as an alternate, kind of track it separately and say, do we really want to include that again versus some other type of value in the building?
Not that we wouldn't repaint
Right.
and refresh. It just wouldn't be replacing the counters again and the sinks again.
The partitions, yeah, things like that. So paint that's really simple. You can do that, make it look better. So those are things that we'd like to keep tracking, but we think that we might be those be on the side. And when we go out to bid for a contractor, what we typically do is you have a few alternates that are listed as add alternates and a few that are deduct, just so that when you get the bids in, you're not in this position where you can't accept one because it didn't come in at the budget number you needed to come in. You want that flexibility. And if they come in a little bit lower than the budget number, great, let's do that other stuff that's on that list. As part of the plan too, we also want to look at things that we've talked about that really, either A, weren't included in the concept phase, or B, probably don't make sense to just keep going forward with. So we had two of those items. One would be extending the north parking lot, and we saw that we could get an additional 7 parking spaces. It would cost about 120K. It's an approximate number at this point, but and looking at the code required number of parking spaces for the entire building, around 30, and you can get 25 there right now, does it make sense to spend extra money down there? And that's a board decision, and that's actually one of the reasons why we haven't gone and submitted to the village yet. It's because we don't want to make that decision in a vacuum. We want the board to weigh in on it today as part of an approval to go to the next step of design. The other part is, I know it was talked about maybe doing a new emergency generator and an enclosure. And so there's a cost there for doing that. I think in talking to the design team, it's something that wasn't prioritized, so we probably don't need to go forward with. Again, that's something that can be done separately. If money does free up, we can take another look at that, but I think that's probably something in the background that can be done later on.
Well, and just for, everybody on the board, I still would like us to consider partnering with the various groups that do fundraising. I mean, I don't know what that would be, but, maybe the foundation, they had asked us if there's a project that they could do, and they would prefer to have a project to do rather than to just donate money. So, we need to, in the back of our minds, think about that, or, I hate to say a car wash, but think about, trustees will wash your car or something.
Well, and remember before I had mentioned like a brick idea, selling bricks or selling something to put their names on.
Yes.
Remember, like that was something we talked about a long time ago. That could be a great opportunity too.
And Karen, you had pictures at one time of the giving tree.
Yeah.
And you got, this is really goofy, but people like to be acknowledged for the amount they give. So you get a different color, like a brass leaf. And
That's at the Park District, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah,
Parks Foundation.
Something like a generator that could be an add-on. It's not part of the renovation, fits that bill just well.
yeah.
We could look in DD maybe and try to figure out what maybe some of those add-ons, premium add-ons are, because it does work well to say you were going towards this thing, whatever this thing is, instead of, okay, what is my brick going towards? What is my leaf on the tree going towards?
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we'll put that down. But are there any questions on the budget?
We're still on budget.
Still on budget. Yeah, we did make sure we had a scope alignment exercise with the design team to make sure that, we're not, for instance, repiping all the fire suppression piping. We're just moving heads where they need to go. Some of those assumptions were worked out between the design side and the cost estimating side. And that's what we'll do again one more round at the end of the design development phase, so that we can come back to you with a little bit more refinement, saying, okay, here's some more numbers. And at that point, we'll be looking at more finite numbers.
And the remediation number you have in here is pretty generous.
It's healthy. The report that proposed, we haven't gotten the final report of everything, but we did get a preliminary proposal, I call it, for what the number would be to remediate that information. And that was somewhere between 15 and 20K. So we're under the 25 that I
And
plugged
we
in.
don't even know if we have to.
Right. So that's the thing too. And Eric pointed this out when we were talking about it last week. If you're not touching a room, say the storage room, leave it and save that money potentially. So, there are some things we can look at doing there. Once we get the report, we'll know a little bit more specifically what rooms make sense and don't make sense. Okay. And then upcoming activities, kind of the general recap of everything we talked about, but at least gives you an idea of what we're doing. So we talked about the submittal of a special use application to the Village of Lisle. That would be coming up, but like I said, we're targeting for Friday. Backup plans coming Monday. Pending the board approval, the design team will develop the design development drawings. And that package would be sent for another round of cost estimating. And that package would include interior design elements, finishes, colors, initial furniture type layout. You saw furniture layouts. Those are more placeholders to see kind of this area. We'll start refining that. The exterior building design will take shape in this next phase, as well as I think Don or Eric said, a lot of what happens in design development is the things behind the scenes that take that package and make it a very big package. Is engineering and building system coordination. It's a lot of back and forth. Now that they've got a plan, then they can start piling in all the electrical and mechanical things. So recommendations will be developed for exterior facade improvements for your review in late August, early September. And talking about it with Dr. Weinstein as well as Shannon Hartree, it looks to be that we'd like to present to this board, maybe in a special meeting at the end of August. Because we think we want you to see the exterior first before doing an open house to show the public the open house. We want a little bit of your input. We want those dates to be about a day or two apart from each other. So it might be during that last week of August, first week of September, that it'd be, I think, like Monday or Tuesday.
I forgot the date, but we're looking at the, because our meeting in August is coming pretty soon because of the V&A. We'd like to propose having a special board meeting in late August so we could just propose this design plan to get feedback from the board and then also plan an open house in late August, correct?
Yes. So that would be the feedback roughly at the same time.
Yeah, so I thought we were talking about having it before the board meeting, the open house, so that we can present results.
We can do it either way.
We'll talk about it. When we'll have to see where everybody's available, and we'll have to coordinate with the architectural team too. But that's kind of where we're targeting late August for an open house / new plans for the board to consider.
So that,
And you would have the exterior designs that we were speaking about by that time.
yes, these are the preliminary ones. We'd expect those to go through multiple iterations, just like the floor plan has.
Yeah. It won't be like a one and done. It'll be your first kind of pass.
Sure.
Right.
Can I ask a question about that?
Mhm.
Because earlier, Mark, you were talking about, someone was here about cleaning the exterior stone. So then are we talking about keeping that and changing some other things for the facade, or are we talking about getting rid of the stone?
So the stone, based on the concept study, we're keeping the stone. It's for how do we address it? So the concept study envisioned either staining it or painting it to somewhat mute it down and let the entrances pop by the design there. The budget doesn't foresee or have the capability to go and rip down all the stone and replace it with a different material.
Mhm.
So it's really how do we address it? And the cleaning was number one to see what it looks like when it's cleaned and how does it work? Because a lot of it, when you look at dark spots, that's it's biological growth essentially. Whether it's not mold, it's algae,
Model.
it's moss, whatever it is. How do you get that out of there? And then how do you address it? Can it be stained at doing that? Can it be painted? That's what they're doing right now.
Okay,
So that's partly why we're not having exterior plans right now, is we don't know.
okay.
We don't really know what can be done. So if you can stain the stone to a more monotone, either gray or brown, and then make the woodwork pop.
Right.
And still keep it like a natural looking building, I think that might be the way to do it and save costs.
And then there's the question of maintenance of whatever we do to the stone, right? Like how.
Yeah, and staining, I think, is much less maintenance than if you were to paint. And we've talked about this, but we'll get more information on that as we
But
move
that's
along.
the kind of stuff we'll talk about further down.
Yes.
Late August, so
Okay.
that last week.
Okay.
Starts at 30th.
Just remember, gray never goes out of style.
Eric and Amy took notes. So the action requested today is, and unless there's any other comments or discussion, we're asking for your approval to proceed with the design development phase based on the presentation and this report. I'll leave it for other questions.
So does that take a vote? Do we have to vote on that?
There's an agenda item, right? Yes.
We do recommend a vote just to make sure that before the team starts
Absolutely.
spinning wheels, all working together.
So I'll move to approve proceeding with the design development based on the schematic design phase drawings, report and presentation.
I will second.
There's no further discussion. Roll call, please.
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Karen Larson,
Aye.
Benny Norton,
Hi.
Emily Swistat,
Aye.
Werner Turner,
Aye.
Sarah Wynn,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye. Motion carries. Great.
Thank you all for your time and
Thank you.
Thank you.